Hello guys, today I want to do a little bit of a Q&A type video, something a little bit different. I haven't actually done one of these on my channel yet, but I wanted to answer some questions that I've gotten in the comment sections of some of my videos. Now, I'd like to do this maybe a little more frequently. If you guys want to ask more questions, then I will try to do this as maybe more of a regular type feature on my channel, but for right now I'm going to start with some questions that I've pulled off of some of my videos over the last year or so. First off, one of my more popular videos has been on building a 9mm AR-15, and I've gotten several questions related to it. One that I've gotten a little more commonly is, what kind of magazine block am I using? Now, I just did a video that talks about using a magazine block versus using a dedicated pistol lower receiver. So check that out if you haven't already seen that. That'll kind of set some of the ground rules or some of the basics for why I chose to go the way that I went. And I did get a magazine block, and honestly I have no idea who makes this. I've mentioned in a couple of the videos that this was actually given to me by another shooter, a good friend of mine, that he had built his own 9mm AR-15, and for whatever reason he ended up getting two of these, and he didn't need this one. He chose the other one, so he gave this one to me. I have no idea what brand it is. I've kind of tried to figure out. There's no markings on it whatsoever. The quality was not that great as far as the fit. You can see some of the shiny parts here. I actually had to file it down a little bit, not only to get it to fit in this Spike's lower receiver, but then to get the magazines to fit properly inside the Magblock. And I'm actually still not entirely pleased with the fit because they don't exactly drop free. Now, that's not necessarily a huge issue. It's just a little frustrating at the range. I am thinking at some point of upgrading, but for now this one works. I've gotten to where it fits, and it works just fine, so that's what I've been sticking with so far. Now, the next question has specifically to do with the 9mm AR-15 and whether or not you can use a standard AR-15 lower parts kit in the lower build. Now, with the method I'm using with the magazine block, the short answer is yes, you can. That's all that this has in it. It's a standard AR-15 lower parts kit. At this point I haven't upgraded the trigger or anything else to it. It's just a standard military spec lower parts kit. One thing that you do have to be careful with is you do have to have a ramped bolt. Otherwise a notched hammer will not work with a standard Colt style 9mm bolt. So if you're going to go with a standard lower parts kit, make sure that you get the ramped bolt. Or if you don't have a ramped bolt available, make sure that you don't use a notched hammer. Other than that, the rest of the lower parts kit will work together with the 9mm build. Now, depending on your magazine block, like mine, does not have a provision for a last round hold open. So currently with the magazines I use, even though they have a provision for a last round hold open, I'm not able to use it because this magazine block basically gets in the way of the standard AR-15 bolt catch. But as of right now, I make do without the last round hold open, and at some point if I do upgrade this block, then maybe I can take advantage of that. So the next question had to do with one of the precision rifle matches that I posted some video of. It's a Colorado Springs match that's held locally here in Colorado, and somebody asked what rifle and cam I was using in the match. Now, the rifle that I'm using started out as a Remington 700 varmint. I upgraded it to a Bell & Carlson stock and added a Leupold Mark IV scope. Now, just before I started getting into the actual competition side of it, I decided I wanted to add a detachable magazine system to the rifle, and Magpul had actually just come out with this bottom metal that they designed that is designed for their Hunter rifle stock. So my Bell & Carlson stock was not inletted properly for a bottom metal system. Now, any of them, Magpul, Badger, any of the detachable magazine systems, it was not specifically designed for. I knew that I wanted to use the Accuracy International pattern magazines They're known to be reliable. They're relatively common for a precision rifle magazine, and they just work. And I figured Magpul usually makes pretty good equipment. I figured it would be worth trying it out. So I went ahead and bought this. It was only about, if I remember right, about $80, and that included the bottom metal and the first magazine. So wasn't a bad price to get started. Now it did require some gunsmith type fitting. I had to Dremel away a little bit of the stock. I'll link to one of the videos where I show some more of that. It took me a little while. I had to actually modify this bottom metal too. I cut a piece off of this back tab and this front tab. But ultimately I got it working. It functions 100% now. It works with both these Magpul magazines and with some of the Accuracy International magazines that I use. Another big change that I made to my competition rifle was it started out life as a .308 Winchester. And I shot a few of the local matches, and you know, it worked fine. I definitely had more wind hold at longer distance than some of the guys shooting the flatter shooting cartridges. So I signed up for and was going to compete in the Battle of Breakneck up in Nebraska earlier this year. And that was actually in April, I believe it was. So getting ready to go to that, it's a bigger match, it's a PRS match. So I decided I wanted a little more performance than the .308. So at the time, I think I had maybe a month and a half, 2 months if that, to get ready for that match. So I had to look very closely. I considered the .260 Remington, the 6.5 Creedmoor, and the 6.5 by 47 Lapua. And I had to weigh the pros and cons of each, and granted they're fairly similar in performance. Each of them has some strengths and weaknesses that maybe I can get into in a later video. But a big thing that I had to look at was actually availability. Because I had so little time, it was going to be difficult for me to find a gunsmith that could do the work. It was difficult to find brass and barrels in stock. It was just everything I looked into, I kind of ran into some difficulties getting it set up just the way I wanted. So what actually came together was I made a video of that as well. But I ordered a Criterion Remage barrel from Northland Shooter Supply, and I ended up ordering it in .260. One of the local stores here, Mile High Shooting, had .260 Lapua brass in stock, and I was able to just go and pick that up. I was able to get the dies for the Lapua, for the .260, and I was able to get bullets, primers, and Reloader 17, which is not the most common powder, but worked well for me. And I was able to get everything I needed, the tools, the headspace gauges I borrowed because they didn't come in time, and I was able to install the Remage barrel using the barrel nut system on a Remington rifle. And ultimately I think I spent maybe $1,500 to get the complete barrel swap, the tools, and I believe about the first 500 rounds worth of ammo loading with the dies. So overall, you know, still wasn't cheap, but I do think it was a little cheaper than what it would have cost me to do a gunsmith, especially getting it done fairly quick. And I had enough time that I was able to go do a couple range sessions at longer range and get my dope dialed in and be ready to go for the match. And overall at the Battle of Breakneck, I felt like that .260 handled itself very well. My dope was right on. I used density altitude cards instead of an app, which was convenient because the bad weather, we had a lot of rain and sleet and wind, and I'm definitely glad I didn't have to have my phone out while I used that. And the suppressor is a SilencerCO Omega. I've done a couple videos of that already. I actually use a brake mount attachment even on the precision rifle, and I've had some comments on some of the Omega videos with, you know, kind of arguing how accurately the brake mount returns to zero. And honestly, I haven't done a super precise test to figure out just how close it gets in returning to zero. I do know that I generally take the can off at the end of the day and put it in the bag separately, and then transport it to the range separate from the gun. And on some of those precision rifle matches, I've been able to install the can, lay out in the prone, and from 300 yards make a cold bore hit on a 1 to 2 MOA target. So, is there some shift between unmounting and remounting? Possibly, but for the competitions that I've been doing, and for my current skill level, my equipment quality level, I felt like it's been more than adequate. Overall, I've been using the flash hider or brake attach mounts on a 260, a 6A SPC, 300 blackout, 223, and I've just been happy with it. The return to zero is close enough for my needs, whether or not, maybe not bench rest quality, but as far as I'm able to see, I don't notice a difference. The can's fairly light, so it does heat up fairly quick, but it also cools down relatively quick. It definitely helps with the felt recoil, helps well with the sound. Now, unfortunately, I don't have the equipment or the ability to actually measure the decibel reduction, but I know that shooting around a number of other competitors that have shot suppressors, especially out in the open, a lot of them sound very similar to me. And what may sound slightly louder or slightly quieter, it's kind of hard to tell because people are shooting different barrel lengths, different calibers, and of course different suppressors. So it's hard to tell, without sitting there and putting them on an exact same gun side by side, which are the quietest. I have noticed the trend towards the shorter suppressors definitely do sound louder out in the field. Now, they're still better than a brake. They're quieter, considerably quieter than a brake, but they're not as quiet as the full-size suppressors. And some people have complained about the length the suppressor adds for moving around barricades, and that definitely does have an effect. I'll try to link to some video where I am actually shooting from a barricade and I have to maneuver the rifle in and out and in and out, and that does have an effect. And I chose a 26-inch barrel for my Criterion 260 because that's what was in stock at the time. So I think whenever I shoot that barrel out and I'm ready to replace it, I think I may drop down to closer to a 22-inch. That way I'm at a more of a 26-inch overall package. But again, I've been very happy with that setup. I'm looking to upgrade at some point, but for right now, that money can be spent elsewhere. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully that answered some questions that maybe you had or some things that you were wondering about. If you enjoyed this, let me know in the comments below. I'd definitely like to do it again. If you have questions that you'd like me to answer, especially about the stuff that I've posted, I'm certainly not an expert, but I'll try to give you some insight into what I've done or why I've chosen what I have. Certainly let me know again in the comments below what your questions are, what you'd like to see me answer. Other than that, thanks for watching, and have a good day.